So if you take something like what we are doing today, right? Animals seem to have that level of communication, right, between themselves, but in ways that we may not understand, but they do. And so what makes ours like a unique experience? Why is it so? Why are we so special as human beings to have like a unique like communication system or like language system? Yeah, because mind you, you are not from the same place I am, but now we have a similar language, which is English, that we both are communicating in, right? But with animals, for example, they may not, they are the same species. I don't know whether they may be of different like groupings, but they'll still understand themselves regardless. So what makes us so unique? That's the question I want to ask.
Okay, so I think the question has two parts.
Okay.
One part is how our language is like difficult from animal language.
Exactly.
And second, between our languages have like a variety of them, and one language not like eight. But in animal languages, if there's the same species, you're saying that it could be this. I mean, it could be very understandable by each other, right?
Yeah.
Whatever species it might be.
Yeah.
So to answer the first part, I mean, be that we have bigger brains, more complex brains in general, and we have the apparatus for it, like the voice box and all, which we can use to produce different kinds of sounds. And I mean, not just the voice box, also the mouth. But if you remove all of that, if you just keep like hands and like sign language in mind, even that we can do with our limbs and so on and so forth. So biologically, we have the apparatus for it. The brain is complex enough to come up with something like language and like make it something that we can communicate in. But more socially, socially and psychologically, the need for it. So the animals that were there like prehistorically, let's say like bacteria, they did not need to communicate much at all. They would just reproduce. That's the only thing that they would do, right? Like eat around and reproduce.
So they just reproduce. Wow.
That's all. Like they just grew. That's all. And through some accident, they grew, I mean, into something more, and that kept happening, which we call evolution today, right? You have bacteria, you have fishes, you have like reptiles, and then you have animals, then you have mammals, then you have us. So as you grew in terms of, as you evolved from a bacteria to, let's say, a fish, there are more things to talk about now. A fish can talk about, okay, their like homes and how far their homes would be from another like hibernation site, and they could tell the other like schools of fishes that, okay, we need to go there. So that becomes a new thing to talk about. So they have more, they would have like pheromones, they would have movements, like fin movements and all, to talk about these things. There would be like a little sign language that they would have developed to talk about this additional thing. Then you come to animals. There you would have an entire hierarchy of like predator, prey, and they would need to talk about danger, they would need to talk about safe places, they would need to talk about food, and so on and so forth. There's a lot more new things to talk about. So they would develop things like vocal cords with vibrations. So how gorillas can talk like us is very close, like is the closest to any other animal or mammal form, right? So this is how we evolve, we expand our world and what we need to talk about. So how our language is different from theirs, and why are we specifically suited for language, is because I think we are this step in the evolution. Maybe something comes next and language looks something differently, completely different at all. So that can also happen. That's the first part of your question. The second part is how our languages are different and we cannot understand each other, while animal species might understand each other. So I'm not sure about it. I'll have to look it up. But what I feel is that, let's say if you're talking about lions from my country and lions from your country might be able to talk to each other. I'm not very sure. I do not think it has been researched very thoroughly. But because they have, as I said, because they have more limited things to talk about, more or less most of the varieties of their language will have like similar structures, similar ways to communicate things. But since we have very, very different, like let's say we have very different geography, A tribe living in the mountains would have vocabulary in humans, a tribe living in the mountains would have vocabulary specific to those mountains. Like they would talk about avalanches a lot, they would talk about like food scarcity a lot. But somebody
True.
who's living in the jungles won't be talking about snow at all. They would
Won't
be
have a
talking
word
about like
for those
varieties.
kind of things. Right.